Hey guys, welcome back to the show. We got our first guest of the show. We got Jacob Robson. Yes, you heard me right. Former MLB player Jacob Robson. Jacob, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for coming on, man. And one thing I just like to ask everyone who comes on the show, what is just one thing you can tell us about yourself?
One thing about myself. I guess this is within the last few years, but I started reading books and I just kind of got on a roll with it and sort of built up, you know, some book tolerance. And I think I've read a lot of great books. I've read some ones that I thought were just okay. But one thing about me is I'm always reading something, at least one book, sometimes multiple books at a time. So, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, man, that's awesome. So in your baseball talk, let's just start in the early years of, I guess, your playing career. You obviously played for your high school team. You batted league off and you played center field. Um, you got drafted by the San Diego Padres in the 2012 draft, but you decided to go to Mississippi State instead. Can you lead us through what ultimately led to that decision?
Yeah, I think the people around me, like my coaches, sort of explained to me that although they thought I was a good player, I probably wasn't going to be a really high draft pick out of high school. And so there, despite that, I was going to get an opportunity to get recruited and play at a really high Division One baseball program, a very high level program. And you know, throughout that recruiting process, I slowly got a feel for how things were, what I wanted out of the school, where I fit in with some of the schools that were recruiting me. And so ultimately, I I had sort of a rule before the draft, and it was if I wasn't going to get drafted in the top 10 rounds, then I was going to go to school. And even still, even if I got picked, let's say in the 10th round, I still probably would have went to play college baseball, just because there's so much to gain from going to a big major D1 program, both academically and on the baseball field. I met also some lifelong friends, um, and I would have never went to that part of the U.S. I think for any other reason. So in Mississippi where I went, so ultimately that was my call, and it was. And I was not drafted in the top 10 rounds, so I didn't really have to make a decision. It was pretty easy for me to choose school.
Yeah, man. Let's talk about your playing career at Mississippi State. Um, I mean, what, how do you think that went? What can you tell us about that?
My first year, I really didn't know what to expect. So, going to that part of the US was super different from where I grew up in Southern Ontario, Canada. I think it was a huge culture shock, and I had to get used to some things, the way people are, the way people talked. Um, this is all very new for me, and I think I sort of stuck out like a sore thumb. So I had to get used to some things. I really didn't know where I would fit in terms of the depth chart with the team. I just was always confident in my ability and just thought if I put my best foot forward, things would work out. My first year, I split time in left field with an upperclassman. And the thing about going to those big D1 programs is the coaches really have a tough time trusting freshmen right away.
Mhm.
And so I think there was a little bit of that. And that's the reason why I didn't play every game there my first year. So I sort of had to battle for a starting spot. And once we made the playoffs, because we made the playoffs, we actually went to the national championship in the College World Series. Once that stuff sort of happened, I didn't really play so much. I was sort of just a bench guy, maybe ready to pinch hit or play defense late in the game. And that was sort of my role on the team. Um, And then my next year, my sophomore year, I actually got hurt. I had an elbow injury and I needed surgery. So I got a medical red shirt for that. And then the next 2 years, I played pretty much every game. I was a starter, solidified starter on that team. So I think when I was playing every day, I was able to do my thing and I was happy with my performance for sure. I think you always want more as an
Hmm.
athlete. You always think you could have done a better job, and I think that's just part of the gig. I feel that way now with my professional career, and as I go into my season this year, I'm sure I'm going to feel that when the season's done. So there's always more to be done, and that is the great thing about baseball is there's always something to improve on. You can't bat 1,000 no matter what, no matter how good you are.
Yeah. You can bat 500 though. You can bat 500.
Maybe
Um,
for
Pardon me. What were you saying? What were you saying?
I said maybe you can bat 500 for a weekend, but not over the course of a season. It's pretty difficult to hit
Oh
a
yeah.
hit a little round thing with another round thing and make it go.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah. So anyway, the Detroit Tigers selected you in the eighth round of the 2016 Major League Draft, and you opted to sign with the Tigers. Um, you were in the minor leagues for 5 years before you finally got the call to the majors. Can you describe prog- your minor league career and how it was like playing down there?
Sure. I think being at such a great baseball program in Mississippi State, we were spoiled. We were treated really well. All of our planes were chartered. Um, we had great spreads. Were always staying in pretty nice hotels. We had really nice gear. There were always people watching our games. We had such a great fan base that way. Going from that there to the lower levels of the minor leagues was very shocking and eye-opening because you don't get treated very well. You don't have nice fitting uniforms. A lot of times there's not too many people watching those games, and the food you get, at least from my experience, was not nearly as good. Um, the travel is much more difficult. You have to, there's long bus trips instead of chartered flights, and it's more of a grind, 100%. That being said, I sort of had the same approach that I had when I went to Mississippi State, which was I'm confident in my ability, and I know if I work hard and sort of put my nose down and get rid of those distractions, then I'm going to be happy with my stats at the end of the year, and things are going to work out. So I took that approach to everything I did. The minor leagues are different now than when I was coming up. There's less levels now to make it through. And when I was drafted by the Tigers, for whatever reason, the front office wasn't really promoting players very quickly. So I wasn't sure what my route would be and that would look like for me. My short season, I put up good numbers offensively, and I started and made a full season club in 2017. My first full year, I started in low A, was able to get promoted to high A halfway through the year, performed well. 2018, my second full season, I started in double A, and I wasn't even, I expected to be in A ball again because I never played a full season there. And so things were
Mhm.
moving a little quicker than I expected, although I wanted them to move quickly. Um, Next thing you know, 2018, my second season, I get promoted to triple A at the All-Star break or around there. And so a lot of my friends are still in A ball, and maybe even just getting to double A, and I'm in triple A. So it was a little overwhelming. It was a little bit more difficult to wrap my mind around thought because when you're in triple A, I mean, you're very close to the major leagues. And like I said, I was in an organization when at the time they were promoting people very slowly. And I sort of shot up all the way to the highest level of the minors. So it was pretty wild. I grew up a Tigers fan, and so getting drafted by them was amazing.
Mhm.
But being in AAA so quickly was getting very surreal. Um, anyway, I finished the year in AAA there, had success. I played all of 2019 in AAA. and I had a pretty good year there too. 2020, we were canceled. And then 2021, I started the year actually back in Double A, which I hadn't been in since 2018. And then was in Triple A the rest of 21, and then was in Triple A again all of 2022 for the most part before I was released by the Tigers. So I kind of have like four go rounds at the Triple A level, which is in Toledo with the Tigers. I think that's more than most players want to say or want to have on their resume. That being said, I think they moved a little quicker than expected at first. So it was like really thrilling to get up there quickly. And then it was, it's tough. It's not easy mentally to just be in AAA that entire time. There were difficult moments. Absolutely. There were moments where I sort of felt like maybe this is never going to happen for me. But I kept at it, and I'm glad that it did happen, although it was short lived. So yeah, I still also believe that my story is not finished. So I've got more games to play.
Yeah, man, we absolutely believe you do. I'll get to you signed with the Kansas City Monarchs in 2022. I'll get to that in a minute. I did want to ask you about you playing at the World Baseball Classic representing Team Canada in 2023. What would you say, if at all, is different between playing for your home country and versus playing for at a major league ball club?
I think it's a lot different. I think the major leagues, there's a lot of money involved. When money gets involved, egos get involved. And I think that goes for anything. It really is a business. The owners own the teams as they would own another company. It really is a company and a business to those people. The players want to win, absolutely. But I think there's a different level of competitive nature when you play for your country. And there's a sense of connectedness to the team and the other players that you don't have in the professional world. I distinctly remember transitioning from college to the lower levels of the minors. A lot of those players in the minors, those A-ball guys, were fresh out of college. So there was a lot of wanting to connect and have camaraderie with your teammates. As you get up to AAA, guys get older, guys have families, and it sort of becomes more of a colleague relationship with your teammates. It really does become work. So you hang out with them less off of the field, you hang out with them less in the off season. Whereas when I get together to play with Team Canada, it really does feel like that sense of family is there. And that is very, very special. And there's no amount of money that can duplicate that feeling. So another great thing about Team Canada is it's tournament style play, which means your stats don't really matter. Whereas in the minor leagues, especially in the minor leagues, you're trying to put up stats. And when you get to the big leagues, those minor league stats are to get to the big leagues. And when you get to the big leagues, those stats are kind of erased. And you want to put up stats even more at that level, because that is really a direct factor of your future income, is those stats you put up in the big leagues. So there's a lot of stress that goes along with that. And there's a lot of negative emotion that can happen there. There's a lot of opportunity for bitterness, jealousy. Whereas in that international play, I hadn't experienced any of that, and I didn't really see any of that from any of my teammates. So it is so special. And, I've done countless interviews about this, and it is a common question that I get asked, but it never gets old to me talking about that experience. It genuinely is so amazing. And I'm very grateful to have done it so much, even from when I was in high school playing on the junior team. It is still that same feeling that I get when I played for that WBC team.
All right. Now I want to get to signing for the Kansas City Monarchs of the American Association League. Um, for some of our viewers who may not know if what that league is, how different is it from the major leagues?
So the American Association is an independent baseball league, and it's located kind of right up the middle of the US. There's a team in Texas, and then there's also one team way up in Winnipeg, Canada. But it's basically a straight shot up the middle of the U.S. That league is not affiliated with Major League Baseball. It is not a minor league team. It's an independent team, or as baseball players sort of call it, indie ball. Um, that being said, since the minor league rosters have been shortened, there's a lot more players who probably could be on a minor league roster that have nowhere to play. And so what they do is they fill up these independent leagues with players. I think it's going to be more competitive this year than it was last year. But it is difficult to compare. You know, in indie ball it can be a grind. There aren't those amenities that you get living the big league life. You know, flying in private jets, having chefs cook you meals. I mean, it's pretty amazing staying in these incredible hotels when you're on a major league ball club. Um, there's none of that. You know, the spreads aren't too good. One bus per team, pretty much. Guys are kind of crammed on the bus, long bus rides through the night. Um, so it's different that way. But I will say this, you know, when the game starts, it's still baseball. The rules are the
Mm.
same. There's still a pitcher on the mound trying to get you out. And that's the way I view it. And I'm not bothered by the lack of amenities because I just love to play. And I've always loved to play. And that's sort of what keeps me afloat and keeps me mentally still in there is realizing it's the same game. If I was on a major league baseball field or an indie ball field, either way, I'd still be trying to get a hit. I'd still be trying to put together a good at bat and help my team win.
So looking at the Kansas City schedule for the 2023 season, obviously y'all start in May. Y'all start against the Bananas. How do you think that series gonna go? I mean, and you know,
Yeah,
what do you think about it?
honestly, I have a buddy who plays on the Party Animals, great friend of mine. So really more than anything, I'm looking forward to hanging out with him again and seeing him. It's always good to reunite with an old friend. I don't really know how this stuff's gonna go. I've never played against the Bananas. I know that when they play against the Party Animals, they're sort of rival team. They have all these things that they do, all these routines that they do. I don't know if that's going to happen. I think it's one of those things you have to just keep an open mind and just go with the flow, and just try and enjoy it. I'm sure it'll be a little different than playing in a regular game, but you know, the fans seem to love it. So I think it'll be a fun time either way.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question. Some of the Bananas antics on the field, um, if they do end up doing some antics, do you think it will throw you off in any way? Maybe what do you?
I'm not sure. Honestly, like I'm gonna try my best to keep it just about the baseball because really it is an exhibition game. It's supposed to just prepare us for the season. So I think you can like get what you want out of it if you just make it about that. Um, you know, I think you get as much as you put in a situation like that. I think like kind of having a closed mind or maybe thinking you're above that stuff is probably not going to lead to a good experience for you. So like I said, I'm just trying to keep an open mind toward the whole thing and just be free and easy.
Right. So one last question, and this is to kind of wrap it all up. Wrap up what you've told me. Do you would all going back to the start of your career, do you maybe regret going to Mississippi State instead of going to the major leagues?
No, I don't regret signing or I don't regret turning down the draft there in 2012. No, not at all. I was not a very high draft pick at that time, so I'm not sure I would have been treated with prospect status. Um, and I just had a great time at Mississippi State. I played with a lot of great baseball players, and I learned how to conduct myself and sort of be a pro, if you will, just by watching those upperclassmen when I was a freshman. And I made some friends that I'm going to have for life. You know, I think it's really special that the game has brought along a lot of amazing people into my life, and also the sense of community and family that I have uh, with Mississippi State, and with my former coaches. If anything ever happened to me in my life, uh, God forbid, where I really needed some assistance, those people would be there for me and they would have my back. So it's really nice to have support of a whole community like that in Mississippi State.
All right, well, Jacob, we appreciate you coming on, man, and we appreciate you talking with me.
Absolutely, Jake. Yeah, I'm happy to do it. All the best to you. Keep doing your thing.
All right, thanks, man. We'll see you next time.
All right, take care.